Okay, so firstly, we're hiring. So that's the number one thing I'm here to do. I love Cluj. I think this town is fabulous. I particularly like my favorite site in the world. I think it's called the best country or the best city in Europe or whatever it's called. But it's just a great place, and we've been developing our tech here together with the amazing guys at Halcyon, and we have now just established SmartUp Romania, and our actual global tech is here. So this is not an outsourced project. This is not you guys are going to be in SmartUp are going to be doing a small little thing. We want to hire the best, and we think there's an amazing opportunity to, there's so many people here who've been working on some great outsourced products, but now here's an opportunity that's companies coming down that has global business saying we're building our tech team here and our global tech team here. So I also want to talk about very specifically about scaling out of Romania, specifically scaling out of here, and how do you go global? We've had some great people coming in, who just today in the pitch, we saw companies that have come from different places coming into Cluj to start their business, and of course, where do you go from now? So just really quickly, as I said beforehand, have both an accelerator and a fund, as well as SmartUp. SmartUp is my utter main focus. We're building something very, very cool. We're trying to unlock people's potential. It's a great thing where, there's a lot of stuff you've read, but it's very difficult to show that you've read it. You can say, tweet it, but how much do you actually know? How much can you actually tell us? And this is one of the things that I grappled with as an investor. The reason I started this was because we wanted to mentor startups at scale, and particularly early stage founders who we used to get the same questions over and over again, and we're kind of similar answers. And we're like, there must be a better way of doing this. And so SmartUp was born, which is a micro-learning platform. But our mission is really to build, what we want to do is build the electricity of training and learning and knowledge in the world. We think that everyone's moving away from big old learning a few big PowerPoints and long videos to very short, sharp, focused learning. And we can see a lot of great traction in the market already. So that's what we are. We're a micro-learning platform. We are very much mobile first. In fact, we are only mobile until we go web in the summer. And it's all been, very much inspired by goldfish. Now, actually, the average attention span of a human when on the web now is down to 9.2 seconds. The average attention span of a goldfish apparently is 10 seconds. So the average human has a shorter attention span than a goldfish, which is great because I've always been told I have the attention span of a goldfish. So I'm actually feeling very happy now that I have a longer attention span than most humans on the web. And so we've got to actually move into very different ways of absorbing information. Big, long videos don't cut it. We know that. We see very short, sharp stuff in social every single day. It's the same thing when it comes to learning and development and training. So we've built this platform. We have an amazing group of people contributing or investors into the company. And we've already, we only launched back in October, really, and we've already got big banks using us. UK government is using us, startups, etc., business schools. So we've got a pretty cool platform. So that's SmartUp. I'm really going to talk about scaling. Now, all of you here are either thinking about joining, starting, or thinking about so a lot of you people will go out into startups. There'll be this explosion here from the big outsourcing things into joining some great new startups that scale out of here. The question is how to do it. Now, we built SmartUp with these great guys in Halcyon. We've just now opened an office right next to them. But these guys are great. Like this team is just amazing. It's like works really, really hard. It gets projects done. It really understands. It listens to people. It delivers products on time. And it's thanks to these guys that, I believe local legends on the startup scene here, Levi and Sabi. In fact, Sabi's leaving you guys. He's going to Cannes now. Cluj has been great, but he's now going to, he's off to Cannes Lions, but he's representing Romania there, and it's all about getting your work out there. These guys came out, they worked hard in London, got to know people, and it's so much about networking. They're going to pick up, I'm sure, a whole bunch of more business through what they're doing with Cannes, etc. But it's really, really networking. You've got to work hard. You've got to get out there and talk to people. So, from us, we already have US and Asia. Our headquarters is in the UK. Our tech is going to be in Cluj. This is our new office in the Liberty Tech Park. But I'm going to come down to what's really, really crucial. Again, coming back, you've got to move. There was that great company called Planable that was in the judges panel here. In fact, all those companies were great. And the first question I would ask, particularly for someone like that, the reason I asked if you're going to the US is because they are very much focused on the US in terms of what they're going to do. They're going to go after agencies, and that's going to have to be there. You've got to think about when you move, there has to be a time to move, but you've got to do it, I think, in the right way. So I'm showing a picture here of Waze. Now, Waze sold for $1 billion to Google, and the CEO was in Palo Alto, in this little building in Palo Alto. Never got any bigger than this office. And I'm showing an article from 2015, but this was how people viewed Waze. They viewed it as a Palo Alto company. So this is a site saying, hey, 20 tech companies with strong roots in Palo Alto. They had the tiniest team in Palo Alto. Everyone was in Israel. But everyone in Palo Alto thought it was a Palo Alto company. And they did it because the CEO was there. So too many companies think, let's send out a business development person or maybe a marketing person and send them out to the US and they'll do the US. It doesn't work. The CEO has to go. Now, in this case, there were four founders actually. 3 founders stayed in Israel, and Noam went to the US. But I have to emphasize again, if you're going to go global, you, as the CEO, have to do it, because if you're going to be out there doing partnerships, etc., the people in the US are wanting to talk to the CEO. They don't want to talk to the business development person who has to then feed stuff back to the CEO, wherever it is, and they get to see it, and they don't get to talk to the person who's running the business. It's super critical. The most successful companies do it this way. I'll have another example of another Israeli company I was deeply involved in called Anavo. And they pivoted into a data play. The CEO moved on his own out of Israel, moved over to the Valley, got to know everyone in the Valley, and they sold for over $200 million 9 months later. Now, they wouldn't have done that to Facebook. They wouldn't have done that trying to do that out of Israel. They had to, even with Israel, the CEO had to go. So, frankly, here, you've really got to go. The second thing is that I have to emphasize, I've worked on many things beforehand, and this is one of my favorite companies, TransferWise. TransferWise has this amazingly cool company culture, as does Airbnb and some others as well. One thing you've got to really think about as you go out is think about the culture of the company. You've got to really focus on it. You've got Airbnb does an amazing job of making sure that Airbnb in different locations is feel very similar. It's important because basically when someone from here goes to the US or someone from the US team comes here, they need to feel like they're part of the same company. And so getting the culture right is important. This is in the US, this is in the UK, but equally they did exactly the same thing in the US. Spotify was also extremely good at getting culture right. And those companies that scale really well get their culture right from the very start. So everyone has the same beliefs, they have the same passion, they understand how, what the working culture is like, and that really has to come from the top. You can't devolve that. You can't say, hey, you go fix culture. Like, it has to come from you. It has to come from the top. And you won't win otherwise, because when you hire people around the world, they need to buy in. Think about when you're hiring people here, you sell them your vision. But in the US, or Asia, or wherever you're hiring, they're far removed from that original vision, which is here. And you've got to then, they who you hire in the US to run the US business for you, will then be establishing that brand and that culture for you. You've got to get that right. The other thing is obviously talent. Now, when you go, if you're a big fish in a small pond here, you can get the best talent. You go to the UK or you go to the US, and suddenly you find yourself, you're fighting with all these other startups to try and get people working for you. And it's really, really hard, which again comes back to culture. But if you've got a good product and you're getting good traction, which is the reason why you've managed to go overseas anyway, then you're in a good position. So never skimp on talent, wait, or just get in somebody for a temporary thing, but really always try and get the best possible people you can. And then, this may seem weird when you're in a small stage, but when you get big, it's really important to encourage individual thinking within the company. So there's because eventually as it gets big, everyone feels like they're part of a machine. But it is important, and especially as it gets bigger on the ground here, and you start to get some management layers, etc. This is so important to keep encouraging the individual thinking within the company that brought you there. But I think the thing I couldn't emphasize more than anything is data. Data should drive everything you do, right? So there should be really, the days of someone going, well, I think that this is what we should do, is long gone. You should be looking at data and then deciding, this is what I think we should do. So every decision that you make, I think, should always be driven by the data. It should be said, okay, I'm going to go to the US and I'm going to scale because I've mapped out the initial data points of people getting my business, and I think that's pretty good. So I'm an investor in a company called LifeSum, which is a bunch of ex-Spotify guys, which is a fantastic health app out of Sweden. It's always in number one slot in the health and fitness category in the US, and it has been for 18 months at least. They have 16, 17 million users, of which half are in the US. They have nobody in the US, not a single person in the US, yet their fastest growing, biggest base is in the US. Now, they will finally start to go and put some people on the ground in the US. But they wanted to make sure that as a product, it worked. People talked about it, people used it, people talked about it and used it before they ever thought about going and hiring expensive people in the US. So I can't emphasize enough, there are too many times that people decide to go to Asia or to US or UK without actually having any data points to justify that decision. So you should really only do it if you've managed to sell some product. You should be able to sell product. I met a fantastic team in Indonesia last week, small little team, 5 developers. They're in HR, SaaS business, and somehow they've managed to get 150, 200 companies in the US using their product, and they've never left Indonesia. I think they may have gone up to Singapore, but that's about it. So again, if they can do it, that's the point at which you should decide as to whether you should do it. So as an investor, I'm going to swap over to a little bit and then just have a quick chat about what are the key markets that investors are looking at. So, to be honest, I think, as I said beforehand here, enterprise B2B and deep tech are going to be the things that people are going to be interested in coming out of here. Of course, e-commerce and marketplace stuff as well. But you would have to have a significant presence in Eastern Europe already to get investors from outside interested in investing in you. But you will have people interested in investing in enterprise B2B and deep tech if you have the tech here and you as the CEO or founder move across. But I'm going to quick. There's been a lot of chat about unicorns. Is the time over? Is it finished? It is, of course, isn't. And I'm just going to run through some data points that just talk about that. So one thing, though, that has been very interesting is that this is one of my favorite graphs. So this is a graph of the number of ping pong tables sold in Silicon Valley versus the number of venture capital deals that are done. So generally, it's been very, very good. 2015, quarter two, shed loads of ping pong tables sold in Silicon Valley, a lot of money invested. Q1 2016, very little money invested, very few ping pong tables. Basically, people are working harder in the Valley. They are suddenly deciding that they've got to go and earn some money and get some revenue. So the pressure is on in the Valley, and that will translate here as well. So the pressure is on, people are looking for more revenue. They are looking for path to profitability. So just being able to build something and, maybe something will happen is difficult. Unless, of course, that you manage to have a hit in the games market or the messaging market, then, yep, absolutely fine. But in general, people are looking for money. One of the things I should also say is don't just think about the US, think about Asia. There's been hardly any unicorns happening in the US this year, but there have been 12 already that have been funded, hit that funding milestone in Asia. Well, I should say almost, Skyscanner being one here. But most of them are in Asia, and Asia is just exploding. So I would also think about Asia in terms of what you can do. The biggest issue, though, is the reason why there's so much focus on returns is that in 2015 was the first year since 2010, obviously, when more money went into companies than came out, which basically meant there were very few exits. So again, the focus is we need our money back. The funds are under a lot more pressure from their investors into their funds, saying we want the returns. We want to see the returns for 2012 and 2014. But there will always be good companies made in these markets. So very key trends. Artificial intelligence and deep learning is a key trend. It is only going to accelerate. So if a group of data scientists and AI people got together here and decided to start a company, that would be incredibly interesting, depending on what they're doing. But generally, that's going to be pretty interesting. Digital health is hot and is going to increase in getting money through. On demand is not as much as you think it is. The vast majority of the money in the last year or so has just gone into the very big guys, Uber, Didi, Airbnb. The other up-and-coming players are getting very little money. So the on-demand market has seriously crimped in terms of funding. Autonomous cars, anything in vehicles, anything like that gets money, particularly if you've got something smart or interesting, and again, you can do the tech here and move over. The other thing that's very, very interesting, very quickly, is what we call asset intensive. So this is what we would call enterprise play, say oil analytics, gas analytics, transport, construction tech software. So this, when you ever see Sequoia investing in something, that's where you should go. Sequoia, for me, is the best, and they are heavily into big tech in big sectors. So that's it. That's the end of the presentation, hopefully giving you some ideas about where the market's going. Thanks.
Thank you very much. That was great.
Great.
And good luck in Cluj.
Yeah.
Finding a good team.
Absolutely.
And scaling a global team.